Okay, I've got 202, so we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the fourth segment of the Forest Products Society's new monthly webinar series, the Forest Products Insights. Each month, the Forest Products Insights will welcome a guest speaker sharing their research, technical expertise, and experience to a live audience. This series will take place on the third Wednesday of each month and will feature a new guest speaker from various industry areas. This event will be an open conversation where your questions can be answered and ideas can be shared amongst peers within the forest products sector. If you are not an FPS member, we also invite you to learn more about the Forest Products Society and consider membership within our organization. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to an engaging conversation. And thank you again for your support for the Forest Products Society. So without further delay, I'm going to turn things over to our host today, Terry Lyles. And Terry is our current FPS president-elect who is hosting from Huber Engineered Woods outside of Atlanta. And so Terry, you can introduce Brunela and we'll kick things off.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'd like to again welcome everyone for being here. Thank you for being here today. What we're going to be doing during this talk is we're going to mute everyone to try to reduce any background noise. If you have questions that come up during the talk, if you would put those in the chat room, and then I will ask those questions to Brunela at the end of the presentation. Also, just to let you know that there's a couple of things coming up with Forest Products Society. There's an Introduction to Wood Science webinar course on May 25th and 27th coming up. And we also have our virtual international conference on June 15th through the 17th. And you can register for those on the website. My pleasure this afternoon to introduce Dr. Brunela Rodrigues. She has a bachelor's degree in forest engineering, and she holds a master's and PhD in forest sciences at the Federal University of Espírito Santo, Brazil. Her research area is forest products technology. She has worked with wood anatomy, wood identification, and wood properties in general. In the past years, her research focuses more on wood quality from forest plantations, especially studies related to the influence of abiotic stress and contrasting environments on eucalypt wood quality. Two relevant abroad experiences were her internship at CONICET in Mendoza, Argentina, where she learned about dendrochronology techniques. Also, she was a visiting student at the Forest Products Research Lab in Madison, Wisconsin, where she worked closely with the NDE team. Besides the research activities, she's also had teaching experience. She taught classes to forest and engineering and wood industry engineering undergraduate courses as a temporary professor. Currently, she is a postdoc fellowship funded by National Council for the Improvement of Higher Education in Brazil, working at the graduate program of forest science at the Southwestern Bahia State University. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Rodrigues.
Okay, thank you, Terry, for that introduction. May I share my screen right now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, hold on a second. So Jennifer, just let me know if it's okay for everybody there.
It looks good. You're good to go.
Okay, so thanks again, Terry, for the introduction. I'm Brunela. As he said, I'm from Brazil, and I'm living here in Brazil right now doing my postdoc. And today I'm going to share with you a part of my project that I developed when I was in my graduate time. And also because last year I attended at the 2020 FPS International Conference, and I present a poster there, and this presentation will be that part, okay? So as an agent for today, I separate in the introduction, importance of the study, material and methods, results and conclusion, and for the end, the Q&A session. Just a background about today's presentation. The general title was influence of abiotic stress on eucalyptus in Brazil. And let me just take these icons from my screen. Yeah, now it's better. And my subject for today is going to be the wood quality of young eucalyptus trees under abiotic stress and their impact on pulp production here in Brazil. Just a brief introduction about the forest sector in Brazil. From the last annual report, we have around 9 million hectares, and from this total area, around 7 million hectares, it's from eucalypts. We have 7 million hectares with eucalypts here in Brazil, and that represents a big range here for the first sector. And most of that wood, it's used for charcoal production, different kinds of panels as plywood, OSB, and MDF, and others. Also for the tin production, we have one of the biggest soil mill here for eucalypts located as well here in Brazil, sorry. And other very important sector that we have here and that represents this big, huge eucalyptus plantation is related to the pulp production, pulp and paper production in Brazil. So about the abiotic stress, this in specific, we called eucalyptus physiological disorder because it's a special abiotic stress that it's occurring here in Brazil. And this is abiotic, it's a disease from abiotic etiology, is not an abiotic one, sure. It's from not living organisms such as raining, all variables related to the climate as raining and the range of precipitation, the precipitation, the wind, the temperature, all those not living variables. And this EPD that we called here cause a lot of damages and create a lot of growth disorders in our eucalyptus plantations here. And here we have a couple of them that just let me, okay, I choose here this point one, yeah. Such as loss of apical dominancy, reduced growthing, and deformation in the form of the minor cankers and the stems and the apical meristem. Also, the EPD cause some characteristics with occurrence of the death of the leaf fall. Sometimes we have the crow forking. That's not good for us here for the pulp production. With many lateral sprouts and cracks, and also exudates presence in the bark. Related to wood quality, this is a couple questions here about this abiotic stress. For us here, we will talk about wood quality for one goal, the pulp production. When we mention about wood quality, we need to make sure what is the end use. It's for charcoal, it's for cellulose, like pulp production, it's for plywood or solid timber. You need to make sure the end use first, then you can define the wood quality for that product. So for us here, it's for pulping. And our big question here is how those damages could affect the wood quality required for pulp production here. And if there is such a difference, how can we recommend the use of this woody material to the industry? And here we can see a couple of variables that we will consider in this research, in this presentation today. Those will be the physical ones related to the wood density, the chemical ones related to the extractives, lignins, all cellulose, and yeah, those that, and pulp variables. These variables that we need to make sure if our wood has the quality required for our process here. So our objective of this study was to evaluate the effect of the abiotic stress called eucalypt physiological disorder on wood quality for pulping. This is our main objective here. For that, and to perform our study, we consider 2 plantations from 2 stands. That plantation was around 3.5 years old and located at Bahia State in Brazil. That is the located here. This is by the place where we collect the trees, Bahia State. So as Chris asked me, I'm from this state, Espírito Santo State, and we collect pretty close in Bahia State. And for that, we select nine trees from each level of EPD that we consider in that study. Was one from lower stress, not much effect for those symptoms of EPD, and high stress that was like very affected for the EPD stress. So here we can see a couple of pictures that we took on a field when we collect those trees there. And for picture A, we have the stand that we consider from the low level of like under lower APD symptoms. And in the right, we can see the stand that we consider there higher with EPD symptoms. And here we have more pictures from the collecting time on the field. Another thing that I want to mention here is about the growth of that trees and how much wood they are producing. Here we can see the DBA that we collect on the field from the lower and the higher one, and then we can see there and compare. Sure, the place that we have the lower APD symptoms produce high volumes, much more volumes of wood in the end of the rotation. To perform all the analysis, we consider a couple of treatments. Why we consider these 5 treatments? The first one was the wood just for under lower higher, sorry, I didn't take out the higher one. The first one's lower EPD symptoms. I'm so sorry. The second one, the second treatment, is under higher EPD symptoms. The third treatment, it's a wood mix that we make this composition from different woods that we collect on the company. And the fourth one is 8% of the treatment 3, that mix, plus 20% of the wood under higher. So we want to know if that wood under higher can be used in the company with less damage to the process. And the last treatment is to use 20% of this treatment 3 related to the wood mix plus 18% of wood under higher APD symptoms. And for that, I'm sorry, we select that treatments and then we process them and do those analyses right here. We studied the extractives, the lignin, the pentosans, and the cooking process. All the procedures are described here. And the thing that is interesting to mention it about the cooking process is it's that we fixed the kappa number in 18, more or less 1, residual alkali between 1 and 5 grams per liter, liquor sulfidity around 35, around in 35 plus, sorry, more or less 1. And the overcooking time, it was 290 minutes. And here we can see the results about these analysis. Oh, now it's much more good. So here we have the treatment 1 and 2 that we compare the first, the 2 levels, low and high levels of the APD. And here we can clearly see how the EPD affect negative to the chemical composition of the wood. So we can see here that the higher the wood under higher level of EPD produced higher extractives, either and alcohol and acetone as well. And also the lignin, we have a significant range here for the lignin. And other thing that's interesting to mention that we don't have difference between pentosanas in these 2 treatments. For that, we also have here the results related to pulping process or the cooking analysis. For that, we have here a very interesting effect to the screened yield. So you can see here that the screened yield decreased around 4%. That's a lot for the company. And this is the thing that very concerned us in that time. And because that we decide to mix this material, this under higher level, under higher EPD symptoms to the mix of the company. And here we have the results related to that. For the mix of wood, this mix of wood, just to be clear, it's from the company. Like we just went to the company, got some samples there that the company used daily, and we brought those to the lab and made that mix. We separate this wood mix and add 18% for the treatment 5 and 20% for the treatment 4. And we got these results. That's very interesting ones. We can see here that the level, I'm sorry guys, we can see here that the screened yield that we used with just 20% doesn't affect as much, or in this case, doesn't affect, and contrasting, the treatment 5 affect a lot the screened yield here. So once again, we can see how these EPD events can cause a lot of damage on the tree, just not only on the visual things, also at the wood quality, the end wood quality that we need for pulp production. So once I just have around 15 minutes, let's go to the conclusion, some points I want to discuss here. So the results show that the EPD symptoms hearing not affect the wood density and pentosans. the wood density wasn't affected for this abiotic stress. However, this EPD has affected negatively the extractives and the lignin content. And those two variables, it's so important in the pulp industry, because if you have a material, a raw material with high levels of extractives and high levels of lignin content, that make a big trouble there, because they need to use more chemicals. They will spend more money for that, and that's not the good one. Overall, the wood chemical composition from trees with higher EPD symptoms affected directly the cook process variables, as we saw in the last tables. The wood mix supplemented was useful to direct the rational use of trees that grow under higher level of EDP symptoms. And in case like that, I want to make sure, in case just like that, it's important to recommend a doses of less than 20% of the wood material under this high level of symptoms. So if some company gave me some results about chemical composition, and the chemical is close to mine here, I would like to say you can use around 20%, less than 20%. That will be good for your company, for the industry. As a strategy, a program for first improvement, it is important that the genotypes used are less sensitive to environmental variations. In other words, the companies must select clones classified as tolerant or sensitive to EPD. This is a good strategy for the forest breedings. So I'd like to say thank you and muito obrigada to all audience here today. And you can email me if you want to to ask some questions about my research. If not, you can talk to me using LinkedIn or ResearchGate platform. You just need to type my entire name there and find me there, okay? So now I'm very thank you to answer. I hope you have some questions here to answer, and I will be very happy to answer them. If we don't have enough time here today, I will address you next time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodrigues, for an excellent presentation, informative presentation. There are a couple of questions here for you. First question is, what is the best way to differentiate abiotic stress symptoms in the field from other issues, such as nutritional problems and diseases? And the comment here is loss of apical dominance may be related due to the lack of boron, for example.
I'm reading here, sorry.
Reading,
so
okay. What
is the best way to differentiate abiotic stress symptoms in the field from other issues such as nutrition? I guess in this situation, the best way is to see the leaves, because for problems related to boron nutrition, the color of the leaves will be very different from these symptoms. In this case, in extreme case of the EPD, what has happened is the death of the tree, okay? I don't know if I reply correctly. Yep.
Okay. Another question is, at what age does EPD really show, and does the trees overcome it anyway?
So here in Brazil, we are having to see more in around 3 years old, but in some new plantation areas in the northeast part in Brazil, we are seeing it until the final of the rotation, around 7 years old. Yeah, I would like to say 3 years old.
Okay. And also, at what age does a eucalyptus palm trees get harvested for pulping?
Around 6 and 7 years old, between 6 and 7 years old. That will depend which stand they are growing here, because we have very good ones with around over 35 millimeter cubers here, and other ones not so that good, but around 6 and 7 years you have a good rotation for pulp production.
Okay. Another question is, do you have information on the type of chemical structures affected by the EPD?
I'm sorry, type of chemical structures, you mean the chemical structures of wood, right? No, it doesn't. We don't have this information yet, but yeah, that's big insight.
Okay. Couple of the questions. Anybody else has any, please put them in the chat room. Does the EPD show different levels of symptoms?
Yeah, the EPD show it. We also have I have a colleague that work with 4 different levels in Brazil. I was the first research to work in this objective in Brazil, and that colleague worked after me, and she worked with 4 levels. And yeah, you can separate in different levels. That will depend which plantation are you studying here.
Okay. How big was the effect on tree diameter growth?
I would like to say the diameter was affect, like, consider the volume of the wood produced in this condition, like in my study, in our study here, the double. Yeah, affect, may I say the double, because the volume was affected in 100%, yeah.
Okay. Does the lignin structure, in particular the SG ratio, affected by the EPD?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We didn't check it. Yeah, this is a very good one to study, to see. Yeah, we have a high level of lignin here, but what is the quality of that lignin, and what is the ratio of syringil and guaiacil? Yeah, that's a good question.
How about the cellulosic content?
You mean the structure? No, we just take the average of the cell. So in this study, in this study we just study the pentosanes, this principal carbohydrate. We didn't study all the cellulose content. I'm not sure if I was clear.
Okay. What is the forestry breeder strategy when they detect this problem in eucalyptic plantations?
So the big strategy for them is to take out the hybrid that suffer this disorder, and recommend a new one. And as I mentioned at the presentation, it's important to select new clones that has no, how may I say that, it's less sensitive to this abiotic stress. The big question about the abiotic stress, in this case, the EPD, it's because there are a lot of influence that you cannot say this occur because of that. This is a 1 million question.
Is there a way to physically measure the stress level in addition to visual assessment?
I'm sorry, Terry, can you repeat?
Is there a way to physically measure the stress level in addition to the visual assessment you did?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, just visual ones, especially the research fields, that because the company has the people that work at the lab and other research that work on field, and that technicians are prepared and training to detect these disorder visually.
Okay. There's a question here about eucalyptic plantations in the Brunela state. Are they mainly Eucalyptus eurocrandus?
Can you repeat, Terry? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. He said, the question is, are you familiar with eucalyptus plantations in the Parana state? And are they mainly the Eucalyptus eurocrandus?
Yeah, the Paraná state in Brazil, it's other very important state with eucalyptus plantations. I guess they represent 1% of the total area in Brazil, but I'm not sure if it's that hybrid one. I would like to choose the eucalyptus grands. Yeah, because they use for two principal products, pulp and paper, and also for timber products. I guess the eucalyptus grands, not the hybrid one.
Okay. Did you analyze any other variables besides these in your study?
Yeah, we did. So this is, I want to say, is the second chapter of this project. And that second chapter, we collect trees from that same stands over past one and a half years to see how this 1.5 years could affect all variables on the wood. And we also analyzed the wood anatomy, such as fiber characteristics and also the vessels characteristics. I guess the chemical ones again, but we don't dig into it too much. Just the simple ones.
Do you have any information about EPD affecting other important North American species?
Yeah, that's a good question. So now I say that abiotic stress is at the high lines again. And sometimes the people have a mistake to compare abiotic stress with abiotic disturbance. Those are different definitions. And for North America's American species, I don't have that information, but probably that it's occurring. But I don't have that information right now, sorry. I can address you if you want after the presentation, yeah.
Okay. When was the first time?
The climate is changed, so yeah, probably they will have, sorry.
That's okay. When was the first time that the companies detected the stress that you mentioned in your study?
So yeah, that's a good question. So the first time that the companies, the pulp productions companies in Brazil detect these abiotic stress here was around 2008. And after that, when they did this diagnosis, they saw that there's not just in the one or two companies, but more than that, because sometimes the plantation doesn't grow that well that they want to grow. And yeah, there was in the last 10 years around that, yeah. So I'm sorry.
Is it still going on? Is it still happening?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, unfortunately. So they are trying different strategies to stop like, that's a natural occurrence. Even though we have a good genotype, a good research behind that, you cannot prevent, you cannot see the future risks related to the climate. And because that studies like that and others related to different climate conditions, it's important to the forest sector and also for the forest product sector.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Rodrigues, thank you so much for informative and excellent presentation. I think it went really well, and thanks everyone for the good questions that were asked. Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Terry, and a big thank you to Brunela for joining us. That was a great presentation and a lot of good questions, a lot of good information. Our next session is scheduled for Wednesday, May 19th, and that one will feature Dr. Brian Baya. He is the director of the Forest Products Development Center at Auburn University, and he's also our current editor-in-chief for the Forest Products Journal. Brian will be discussing industrial applications of soy flour amended PMDI adhesives. So watch your email for further announcements, and please remember to visit forestprod.org for more information and to register. Thank you so much for joining us today, and this concludes our presentation.